immediately advertising that it's the scariest movie of all time.
Why, hello, everybody. This is Eric Vierthaler, here for the next episode of Sit Down by the Fire, here with my co-host, Ty from Junebug Films. We're here with our next special guest. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Kaleigh Macchio. I am Lainey in the movie Somewhere in Montana, which we're going to talk about today.
We certainly do appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here.
Happy to be here.
Exactly. So how about you tell us all about about how you got involved with this project.
Yeah, so casting actually happened quite a bit before we shot. We had to postpone the shoot by a year after we originally cast. But the process was basically submitting a self-tape audition. So I just shot it at home and I put on like my Carhartt jacket, shot the audition and sent it in. And then for the callbacks, actually, Brandon gave us the entire script and said, you get to choose your scene for the callback, which is, it's daunting, but also kind of exciting in a way because you had the whole scene or the whole script to play with. So I chose a pretty pivotal moment in the story that happens in the back of a pickup truck. Not going to say anything else, but a very big moment for Lainey. And we did the callback, and for like the first time in my life, I messed up my lines on that callback. Yeah. And I was like, oh no. And I just restarted, got right back into it, and it was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, I mean, as an actor myself, I have had that happen, and I mean, I had it happen with some of the movies I was in, and even with one of the plays that I was in, and and I totally do understand like just how embarrassing it can feel when you mess up on a line, but it's just oftentimes, especially when you do it like in a in a project like that, a lot of times the audience isn't gonna know it, but I mean you yourself will know, and everyone else involved like with said project will know. So
yeah, I'm all for improvising. This was like not one of those moments, but it was good because we went back, we restarted the scene right away, got right back in, and it went very smoothly. But yeah, it can be a little daunting sometimes. We have to kind of just forget it and just like get right back into the moment.
Exactly.
Well,
yeah.
Well, one of my favorite stories, Clark Gable, one of the first times he was ever on stage, he fell. He has to run out in the scene. He falls flat on his face, tripped on something.
Oh no!
And this is a play, so there's no
Yeah, there's no second take.
Yeah, second take. So Clark Gable decided, as he's looking directly into the audience, boy, I really fell for that one.
I mean, sometimes you have to roll with those mistakes and work it in.
And plus sometimes there's those interesting moments even in the movies that they actually kept my flub.
Yeah, that's so true. Those moments can make it in, and they can be really fun and feel natural because they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a really good example is during that scene in The Dark Knight, like where the Joker's walking away from the hospital, like where like he's trying to explode it with that button. That whole part, like where he was trying to push it over and over again, that was not in the script. But what I really, but I mean, knowing that Heath never broke character, like he remained in character the entire time, and knowing that they actually kept that in the film.
Yeah. It's so true. There are a lot of moments like that make it into movies, and you just wouldn't know until you.
Well, and even Harrison Ford, in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, granted, he was having some major medical issues when he was filming Raiders of the Lost Ark. He had dysentery.
Oh God, that's terrible.
And so,
no.
And I'm saying in the clean way, if you guys want to know what dysentery is, look it up.
Oh,
I've heard
you might
regret it. You might regret it.
Yeah.
So here's Harrison Ford doing in that scene where you guys see the guy with the sword, and so he's clinching because. And so he has to do this fight scene, and he just has Steven Spielberg. Can I just shoot the bastard? And so then, which led to one of the most famous scenes of the movie. So sometimes those those things on set, actions or something. It's like it leads to the moments that the audience is going to say, "Man, remember that scene?" And then, you know, and,
Yeah.
and Eric, was Somewhere in Montana filmed in Montana?
Totally not. Like, I believe they filmed the entire movie in Polson, right?
We did, yeah. Polson and Ronan.
Is that Polson Mars?
Polson Mars. I might be getting it wrong, but it's just south of Polson, very close by. But we shot in Polson and around Polson the whole time.
Nice.
Yeah, it was beautiful, and we spent the entire month there as well, like while shooting.
Yeah, which I mean, it would make sense if it was in Ronan, since that I do know a lot of the people associated like with Nova Vento, like who made the movie, actually do reside there in Ronan, so that would make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. If Ronan is just south of Polson, then yes. But yeah, all of it's in Montana.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, I am definitely very excited to see the movie. I do know it's now out in theaters, which is great. I just definitely hope that it will play in the theater nearby where I'm at. And yet, I mean, seeing
Me
all
too.
the reviews, yeah, I'm seeing a lot of the reviews on IMDb, and yeah, I mean, so far, I have not seen one bad review yet.
Yeah, very positive response so far. And the screenings, I've been to 2 different screenings of the film, and both of them had wonderfully positive reactions from the audience members. And everyone's been so sweet. So I think it's a film that, even if it's not necessarily your genre to start with or something that you're drawn to, it really wins you over, because it's such like a good piece full of so much heart and soul.
Yeah, from what I've heard, it just seems like one of the movies that they used to make, just not necessarily those, you know, just those wholesome family movies. Pretty much, it seems like, but better than Hallmark.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Hallmark's got its time and its place. Like, don't get me wrong, but no, this is not a Hallmark movie.
No, from what everything I've heard, and no disrespect to Hallmark, but hey, but you got to give them credit. You got to give them credit. They've made the same movie thousands of times.
I know, and they turn them out like crazy, but they know it works and they're doing it well. So by all means, like, keep going, Hallmark. You go.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as long as it helps to pay those bills, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And if it's successful, think about it think about it this way. You have 50 movies you could do somewhere in Kansas.
Yeah.
Somewhere in Nebraska,
I do think, I mean, the thing that is special about this one is it really could only happen in Montana. Like, it's such a big part of the story. But I guess you're right. Theoretically, Brandon could do a bunch of different spinoffs.
Yeah. They could do 50 spinoffs. So
that's true. Although he's not from those states, he's from Montana, so he'd probably have to bring someone on who was from the different places.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's why I said Kansas first. Somewhere in Kansas. So
yeah.
Although, if they have that line, if they go outside of Kansas and they have that line, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. I'm getting so tired of the Wizard of Oz jokes in Kansas. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure that you guys have acquired some Montana jokes that you guys have heard over the years.
I don't think I have specific ones about Montana. I wish I did. Like, you always kind of swap jokes with your cast and crew, but I don't think there were any that were specifically about Montana. But if there are,
well, Eric, when you go outside of Montana, on vacation, they say, where are you from? You say Montana. Then what's usually the thing that comes?
I mean, I have had some people think that I ride horses to work. I'm like, no. And it's funny that they say that because honestly, I've only rode a horse once in my life, and that was when I was a kid. It's like I wouldn't have a clue what I would be doing on a horse.
Yeah.
I mean, and even in Kansas, like we get so many Wizard of Oz jokes, no Superman jokes. I want more Superman jokes,
That would be
and but no, that one just makes me laugh so much because I mean, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I've never been to Montana, but they're pretty modern. They're pretty modern. They have a cars and all that other stuff. They're not that rural. So
definitely modern day place.
yes,
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Eric, do
Yeah.
you also have indoor plumbing?
No.
You, all right, but we've talked to a lot of other people involved with this. It really seems like even if this doesn't win the Oscars, it seems like a movie to me that should win the Oscars.
Oh,
So
definitely, yeah.
Oh, that's very sweet. Yeah, I think I don't know. I feel like because not many people know about this film yet, I think it's going to be a little bit of a slow burn. But I think time it will build and the story will resonate with people. And that's all, you know?
Well, that's why when it comes to Kansas, I'm definitely going to be telling people, let's see this one because But anyway, speaking of Oscars, one of the things we like to ask people on the podcast is when you win one, what would be your speech?
Oh my God.
Don't feel intimidated because I'm the best nothing.
I do. I do have one of those little guys. I actually got Best Actress in a feature at this festival for somewhere in Montana. But it's
That's amazing.
So
yeah.
she already won an Oscar.
Not an Oscar, but an award nonetheless, which is great. And the speech would completely depend on how I was feeling in the moment, and like I don't know, I'm not a very like pre-planned, premeditated person in many ways. I kind of like to just be in the moment. So I think it would depend on what I was feeling, and obviously I'd like thank family, thank friends.
So it would really suck. So it would really suck if she's feeling pretty shitty that day.
I would still give a really good speech. I promise. It might be crazy, but it'd be good.
Well, hey, you know what? As long as just remember at the Oscars right now, you got to watch out for Will Smith.
That's true. Yeah.
But
I mean, he's been there for 10 years, but no, it's now been 3 years, so he now has 7 years left.
yeah, well, honestly, that's up to the Academy to decide what they. But anyway, let's see what and it really seems like it's a great movie too. Because you guys actually got one of the dwarves from Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah, Graham.
Yes.
Yeah. He plays Dwalin in that, which is pretty cool. And I did not know that. And got to hear some fun stories. But yeah, Graham's been in. I like to think about it in this way. I think if you're a nerd, you know who Graham McTavish is because he's been in so many different sort of nerdy IPs. Like he's been in Lord of the Rings, he's been in The Witcher, he's been in Game of Thrones, he's been in Outlander and Castlevania and all of these different things where if you are a nerdy person, you probably have heard his voice or seen his face at some point.
Yes. Now maybe he can make Star Wars better.
Maybe. If anyone could, maybe he can.
Perhaps, yeah. And so, I'm sorry.
But no, it really seems like Montana though has a great growing film community. It's just hopefully this movie could be successful. You guys can actually get your tax incentive. So
yeah. I do think that the industry there is doing. I mean, generally, as far as the U.S. goes, it's doing pretty well. I think a lot of people are surprised that there are so many shoots that are happening in, Montana, Utah area, but it is it's pretty booming, surprisingly.
well, like what the first first, what, 3 seasons of Yellowstone were filmed there, I believe.
Yeah, I think they moved to Texas now, didn't they?
I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they did from what I was told. Now, granted, I don't have the full story, but from what I was told, from my understanding, it mostly was because of tax reasons why did they switched it to Texas. But however, there actually is like a spin-off series of it. I think it's called 1923 that actually has been filming here in Montana. So
Mhm.
Well, they
Well,
also
Eric,
did 1883, right? Wasn't that another one? Another spinoff?
I believe
yes.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think what's next? Isn't it 1943 or something like that?
Oh, interesting.
I believe
Pops
so.
around.
I'm not
What?
entirely sure.
But so Eric,
Yeah.
maybe you should get involved in 1923 because then you know who you can work with, right?
I know that there's a big name involved. I think it's Harrison Ford, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I mean, I definitely would love to, to do a project with Harrison Ford. I mean, considering that when I was a kid, I remember I loved all of you know, uh, the Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, and yeah, I mean, it definitely would be a huge honor.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things about Harrison Ford that I find really cool, I think, he's a very skilled pilot, and he actually, you know, uh, they could actually really use him right now in California because that's one thing that he would do. He would actually rescue people in fires.
Wow. I did not know
That's
that.
awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, um, but Eric, you got any further questions?
Yeah. So yeah, and so from what I was told about the story with Somewhere in Montana, like it's about how these people like of two different worldviews clash, but yet, like where they try to find that common ground. That's a theme like that's very relevant because I meet people of different views all the time, whether if it's religion, politics, or whichever else. And yeah, and I mean, a lot of times, I like that can divide people, which
Mhm.
I mean, just with that in mind, I definitely really like how Somewhere in Montana is addressing that, but in the most tasteful way. So
Mhm.
yeah, and so I was just wanted to get your feedback on all. Oh yeah, I just want to get your feedback on all that.
All of that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think it's coming at a really good time because we obviously are in a very divisive moment in our history. I think social media has really amplified some intense extremes politically, no matter what spectrum you're on. And so I think it's this movie which is examining the idea of like, okay, can you learn to respect someone that has a very differing sort of life view, worldview from you, while not have like while acknowledging it's okay that we don't agree on something.
Mhm.
Uh, so I think it's a beautiful film. I think it does handle it very tastefully, and I think it's a really good time for a movie like this. Um, yeah, I think the way Brandon wrote these two opposing characters and put them together, it could have gone a lot of ways, mashing those two characters up and seeing what happened. But I think the way that he ended up handling it and navigating the complexities of that sort of social dynamic was beautifully done. So, yeah, I think it's a good film for everyone to see at this point in time.
Oh yeah, certainly. And it just knowing that Brandon wrote the script, you know, knowing that he was trying to make both characters like sound as convincing as possible with
Yeah,
their
flesh them out.
worldview. Yeah, exactly. And that right there tells me that Brandon has to be a pretty empathetic person.
He is very, very much so. Yeah,
Mhm.
good call on that. I mean, you could not write this. I think realistically, like if you're working in film in any way, whether you're writing, directing, or acting, you have to be a highly empathetic person because you are telling stories that are not your own personal life story. They might be based on it, they might be inspired
Mhm.
by pieces of yourself in these things, but you have to necessarily be empathetic to put yourself directly into someone else's shoes, which you're doing as a storyteller.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of times the characters that you write can be based off of you, sure, but at the same time, it is not you.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, a bit of you is in every story, I think. As a
Yeah.
writer, an actor, there's a bit of you in every character. But yeah, not directly.
Well, it seems to me, from what I've heard from the movie, the true message behind the movie is like how things, I don't really lack of a better phrase, how things used to be when neighbors, who, oh, you voted this way, I voted that way, you know, but they agreed to disagree and they helped out one another, like we, this, I mean, can you imagine think about it back during our great grandparents era, they helped the community build barns together.
Yeah. I think
I
it's
mean,
tough because humans are like not really like our brains haven't adapted to living on the massive sort of globalized scale that we live on these days. Like our brains are truly still meant to be living in like a village or community. And so I think it's really tough for people to extend that sense of empathy to someone that is completely outside of their circle that they never interact with on, in any other way. It's very hard to
to the point where they need another social media site called Nextdoor.
Oh God, next. Yeah, I try and never go on there unless I specifically need something. That is not a fun place. But yeah, I think it's very difficult as humans to empathize with people that are worlds away from you, that you don't interact with, and you can make snap judgments about from tiny bits of things that you see, tiny truths that you see, or mistruths that you see online. So I understand why it's difficult in this day and age to,
and
yeah,
also, it goes back to the whole, you know, we've gotten to the point where now we've literally tried to, you know, clickbait can be a good thing, and
yeah,
clickbait can be a bad thing. We've gotten to a point where people sit there and say, basically, we've gotten to the point now on social media. All social media now is just water cooler talk.
yeah, absolutely, and
and
regurgitate things we see as well.
and we just, I'm like, you know, just maybe, when I just, do your thing. Don't listen to the people that maybe have an issue with somebody. Because it's like at the end of the day, what matters is that the person that you're talking to, or the person whoever said it to, is a good person at the end of the day. So, right.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
And there's just so many examples, though, of people, think about it, who, because you know the problem with social media is, too, a lot of times, and even stuff in general right now, is, think about it, sometimes it's hard to be sarcastic, especially when you're sarcastic like me sometimes on social media. That's one of the reasons why, Eric, you can testify to this. If I make a sarcastic joke and I'm typing it out, I usually put LOL, sarcasm.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, I've even had it happen in person where I try to be sarcastic, but yet I've had the person think that I'm being serious, and then I then feel bad, that I made them think I was being serious. So
Well,
as long as you clarify with them and you come to a good understanding after, then that's all water under the bridge
well,
for the most.
that's why I've said to Eric, nowadays you have to be so sarcastic a deaf guy could hear you.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, so, like, and so, but the different, that's the thing that I really think that, from what I've heard, the lesson to take from this film is, you know, just, as long as they're not a jerk, who cares, right? So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so
Yeah, exactly. And so let's say, let's say that Somewhere in Montana becomes a movie like say Halloween, like where it wasn't a big hit when it first came out, but it was something that built over time. It like let's say that Somewhere in Montana develops that kind of following enough so where there will be a sequel. Could you see your character coming back for a sequel? And if your character came back for a sequel, what kind of direction would you want your character to go down?
Well, first answer is yes, of course. I could definitely see Lainey being in a sequel, most certainly. She's a pretty big presence in this film, and I think she is. I find her so interesting because she's sort of this like backbone in a sense. Like she's so unshakable in so many ways. While all of this chaos is happening around her, she's just quite steadfast, and very open to people, just all different kinds of walks of life and ways of being. And so I think Lainey would be a fascinating character to have in the sequel, definitely. And it's hard to say what I would want to happen because I don't want to give any spoilers to the end of this movie and where it leads.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
Lainey, she goes to Kansas.
She goes to Kansas, and
somewhere in Kansas.
That's right. That's her story. Yeah. We'll say that.
Cool.
Or if you want to go down the South Park route and have things be absurd, you can have it be like somewhere on Saturn or or something.
Maybe a less logical spinoff, but sure.
Yeah.
Well, it would definitely be that would definitely be the other better than the other alternative planet she could go to.
No, that would be more South Park, I think.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Definitely South Park. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely pretty awesome that you guys were able to get Graham McTavish on. But yeah, so how exactly was it like to have him on set?
Super fun. He's very approachable, very, I don't know. I liked, there was like a moment that I had the first day I shot with him, actually. It was one of the first scenes that we shot. And it was like the one shot that I didn't feel super great about with my performance. And I said, like this just wasn't working for me and I couldn't figure out how to make this work or make it click. And he said, like, you can like say that. You can tell Brendan that. You can talk to him about that. And I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. I'm a little bit scared too. And he was like, no, stand up for yourself. Like, this character. Like, don't be afraid to like voice. If you don't think something is like clicking in that moment, like voice that. You have the right to do that. So he was very supportive and sweet and communicative, and he's so funny. Like the amount of just like jokes that this guy has in his back pocket is insane. So it was a pleasure. He's lovely.
I've heard that Scotsmen have very great sense of humor. So
he is, maybe one of the funniest people I've ever met. So yeah, it was wonderful. Everyone on that whole film was wonderful to work with.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, now that you mentioned it, it got me curious. Would you happen to maybe remember some of those jokes that he shared on set?
I don't.
That's a shame.
I had like oh my God, it was like I think just a copy of my script maybe, and I like just wrote down one or two. We're like in the car, and he sent like going to set, and he would just say the funniest things, but I don't have it, and I'm so sad. But he would like tell jokes, he would tell stories, a lot of stories about like sets he had been on and his experiences on those.
Any Hobbit stories?
Not specifically about The Hobbit, but he was talking about like working with Peter Jackson and how Peter Jackson has this like train, like a life-size sort of train that runs around his property that you can like run on, I guess.
I've heard.
Awesome. Yeah, I thought so too. I want one of those. That sounds amazing.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I want some. I don't know. If I want something on my property, I got something better than a life-size train.
What could be better than a life-size train?
I want a Boeing.
Well,
747, but not a modern day Boeing, because I don't want the wheels falling off my plane.
Fair,
so.
Yeah.
But at least I want a big plane, right, Eric? Come on, wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be cool?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I would just hope that you would have enough land for it.
You need you need to be able to take off. You need like a landing.
And just maybe I'll just buy land up in Texas or Montana. There seems to be a lot of land there. So
There you go. Done and done.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it would just depend on where.
well, and the great thing if you on your own plane, you just hire a pilot, and you can just fly wherever you want. You don't have to worry about air traffic. Just paying for your ticket.
True, that is true. Although I think maybe you'd want a smaller plane because I think you need like a whole crew for a massive plane.
Yeah.
Like maybe a smaller one might be a little more feasible.
We'll see what happens. Right,
Yeah.
Eric?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, the future is always full of surprises.
This is true. This is very true.
Yeah, definitely. And so with the writer and director, Brandon Smith, like who honestly, he is definitely I mean, when I had him on, this podcast, to also